As a civilization, we search desperately for new energy sources. Yet, we live in a world literally made of energy. The shocking truth is that the vacuum of space isn't empty. It's the very fabric of reality, and it holds the blueprint for a new technological revolution. Get ready for O.G. Verin's book, Energy, Matter, and Fields. Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a moment, just wrap your head around this. What if every single thing you see, you touch, you are that chair, the air, even your thoughts, what if it isn't just stuff? What if at the very, very bottom, it's all just energy, pure vibrating energy? And yet here we are, right, facing this ever-present scarcity mindset when it comes to energy. All the time. It feels like some kind of cosmic joke, doesn't it? Like we're a fish, swimming around, desperately searching for water.
Huh. That's a perfect way to put it. It is fascinating, that paradox. And that's exactly where we're diving in today. We are energy, fundamentally. We live in this universe that is energy. But somehow, we're struggling like mad to actually use what should be, well, everywhere. Infinite, almost. So this journey we're taking, guided by O.G. Verin's really provocative book, Energy, Matter, and Field, it basically forces us, compels us to rethink everything, our most basic ideas about what reality even is. It's a bold challenge, definitely. It asks us to see the universe, maybe more accurately.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And that's exactly what we do here on The Deep Dive. Our whole mission is to pull out the absolute juiciest insights from Verin's frankly audacious book. Hang in there, viewers. It's going to get technical. But by the end, you'll see how this single truth, that everything is energy, unlocks the mysteries behind baffling natural phenomena, psychic powers, and even the true nature of UFOs. Okay, let's dive in. Verin's book, it's more to say it's not just another theory floating around. No, this is a huge attempt. He's trying to unify matter and fields, tackle our massive energy problems, and even fix what he calls the crisis in physics. Pretty bold stuff. He digs deep into ideas from the big guns Einstein, Feynman, Maxwell, and kind of suggests that maybe, just maybe, official science in its love for math might have missed some key physical clues. So if you are ready to have your mind seriously expanded, maybe even blown, and start seeing the universe in a totally new, honestly astonishing way, you are absolutely in the right place. So hey, you were digging this deep dive, definitely hit that like button, subscribe, and check out our memberships. There's even more exclusive content waiting for you there. All right, ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay, first things first, the big one. Humanity's desperate search for energy. Cheap energy, clean energy, and the mess they're making, the ecological disaster. Cloaked under the flag of renewable energy, the toxic impacts of mining, manufacturing, and disposal of solar, wind, and battery technologies are too often ignored. It's escalating. It's not just a science problem anymore, is it? So many Western countries have instituted energy policies that are basically deindustrializing them. It feels existential.
It really does. The stakes couldn't be higher.
And Verin, in his book, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He points a finger, a pretty critical one, at mainstream physics. He says it's become too abstract, too mathematically inclined, is his phrase. Focused on equations, losing touch with the physical meaning behind them.
Right, chasing mathematical elegance over physical intuition, perhaps.
Yeah. And he argues this leads to things like exotic theories, like string theory. Theories that, okay, maybe the math is beautiful, but they feel disconnected from the world we actually see and touch.
Losing sight of the reality they're supposed to describe.
Exactly. But here's the thought that really grabbed me after reading Verin, the one that kept me thinking. What if the answers to our biggest problems, including energy, what if they aren't hiding in some super complex, undiscovered particle we need a bigger collider for? What if they're actually right here?
Yeah.
Hidden in plain sight, tucked away in the original ideas of giants like Einstein and Maxwell, just waiting for us to really get them.
That is precisely Verin's starting point. It's the foundation. He keeps circling back to this really profound idea from Einstein himself, an idea that weirdly doesn't always get the spotlight it deserves. Einstein basically said, elementary particles of matter are nothing other than condensations of the electromagnetic field.
Okay, pause there. That's huge.
It is. Think about it. He's not just saying matter interacts with the field. He's saying matter is the field, just bunched up, concentrated.
Like a cloud isn't separate from water vapor. It is water vapor, just denser.
Exactly like that. Perfect analogy. The cloud is water. Matter is field. So if you really take that on board, wow, it changes everything. It's not just theory. It fundamentally shifts how you see well, existence, the fabric of reality.
So the solid stuff we see isn't really solid, it's just focused energy, swirling energy packets.
Dynamic, swirling, concentrated packets of energy.
Yes.
Always connected to and part of this bigger energetic background. And Verin connects this to Wheeler and Feynman, too. Their idea about external fields. They talk about fields having both retarded waves, those are the ones going out, forward in time.
Okay, like ripples spreading out.
Right. And advanced waves, the tricky ones, theoretically, going backward in time, coming in. And they propose these incoming and outgoing waves combined. They resonate, forming stable standing waves around the particle.
So the particle stability isn't just inherent, it's maintained by this constant energy dance, in and out.
That's the picture they painted. A continuous, two-way energetic balancing act that makes matter stable.
Okay, wow. So matter is condensed field, held stable by incoming and outgoing waves. But what is this field, this background? What's it made of, the thing that's condensing?
Good question. And that takes us back, way back, 19th century, Maxwell. Maxwell had this incredibly radical idea, his dynamic model of vacuum.
Vacuum. Okay, normally I think nothing, empty space, zip.
Right, that's the usual picture. But Maxwell, totally different view. He saw it as alive, vibrant, and active scaffolding, Verin calls it, the actual medium where Einstein's condensed fields could even happen.
So not empty at all.
Not even close. He imagined space, empty space, filled with molecular vortices.
Vortices, like tiny whirlpools.
Exactly. Infinitesimally small, maybe, spinning structures everywhere.
Wow.
And between these spinning vortices, he pictured this fluid, a fluid of particles, he called it, flowing, transferring the spin from one vortex to the next, like tiny gears meshing. It creates this dynamic, interconnected cosmic mechanism.
Okay, the whirlpool analogy helps. You see a whirlpool on a lake, right? It looks like a thing, but it's not a separate thing. It's just the water moving in a special way.
Precisely. Maxwell saw the vacuum like that lake, but filled with these spinning vortices instead of water.
Mind blown. Okay, so how does this relate to electricity and magnetism?
This is the genius part. He showed, mathematically, that the rotation of these vortices, that is the magnetic field.
Just the spinning?
Just the spinning. And their deformation, like if they get stretched or squished, that is the electric field.
No way. That's simple.
That incredibly simple, visual, almost mechanical model. Bang! Out plot Maxwell's equations, the foundation of everything we know about electromagnetism.
Okay, hold on. This is huge. This isn't just some quirky old theory.
Verin argues no, absolutely not. He presents it as a living model, something that gives us real, concrete, visual insight into nothingness, or what we thought was nothingness.
It changes the universe from empty space with stuff in it to this incredibly complex, dynamic dance of spinning things.
Pretty much. A cosmic engine room humming away beneath the surface.
And if that's the vacuum, what does it mean for particles? For electrons?
It means we have to look at particles completely differently. Starting from this dynamic vacuum, Verin talks about stratification. Imagine space isn't uniform. The energy flow gets channeled, naturally, into quiet, static regions and other regions that are super active, super dynamic.
Okay, like currents in the ocean.
Sort of, yeah. And within these active zones, he identifies the fundamental unit, the soliton.
Soliton. Sounds like a particle.
It acts like one, but it's not a tiny solid ball, not in the old sense. It's a self-sustaining wave, remarkably stable, a rotating electromagnetic wave.
So the spinning vortices lead to spinning waves.
That's the idea. Verin says the soliton is the basic building block of matter. So an electron, it's not a point charge. It's one of these rotating EM waves, perfectly formed.
How does it stay stable then? Why doesn't it just fly apart?
Because its external field perfectly balances its internal field, a dynamic equilibrium. And that internal field has two parts. A constant bit, that's its charge.
Okay, the familiar electron charge.
Right. And a variable bit made of these things called standing longitudinal waves. We need to talk about those.
Longitudinal wave. Okay, you mentioned those. But first, this soliton model.
Yes.
You said something truly fascinating comes out of it. A constant.
Yes. This is incredible. Verin demonstrates how the actual physical thickness of this rotating field layer, the geometry of this spinning wave, directly gives rise to a fundamental constant of nature.
Which one?
The fine structure constant, alpha, roughly 1/137.
Get out. That number, the one that pops up everywhere.
And very same. It dictates the strength of electromagnetism, and Verin shows it emerges naturally from the shape of the electron soliton.
So it's not just some random number the universe cooked up, it's geometry.
It implies a universe where geometry is physics at a very deep level. Mind-bending, isn't it?
Absolutely staggering. A fundamental constant from the shape of a wave. Wow, okay, so back to those longitudinal waves you mentioned. If electrons and all matter are basically rotating EM waves, this model naturally creates a different kind of wave.
Exactly. We're used to light, radio waves. Those are transverse.
Yeah.
The oscillations go side to side, perpendicular to the direction the wave travels, like shaking a rope up and down.
Right. The wave goes forward, the rope goes up and down.
But Verin's model inherently generates longitudinal waves too. Here, the oscillation, the energy flow is in the same direction the wave is traveling.
Like sound waves, pushing and pulling the air.
Precisely like sound waves, compressions and rarefactions moving along the direction of travel. And Verin argues these aren't just some minor side effect, they're critically important.
Why? What's special about them?
Well, according to the model, they're highly localized, their energy stays focused, they're incredibly penetrating, they can go through stuff that blocks normal EM waves. And they're generated radially outwards by the electron's spinning motion. It's azimuthal motion, like spokes from a wheel.
Okay, so what does this actually mean? Why should we care about these hidden waves?
Because, Burns suggests, understanding them is absolutely key. They're not just involved in how particles interact at the deepest level. He thinks they're the explanation for a whole raft of mysterious phenomena that science currently struggles with.
Like what kind of phenomena?
We'll get into specifics, but think. Anomalies, unexplained energy effects, maybe even the key to unlocking totally new technologies.
So it's like discovering a whole hidden layer of physics. A secret communication network in the universe.
That's a great way to think about it. A hidden energetic layer running on these longitudinal waves.
Okay, you've got my attention. These longitudinal waves sound like they're going to be important. Keep listening, everyone, because these are going to pop up again.
Oh, they definitely will. They're like the hidden threads weaving through Verin's whole picture. But let's zoom out for a second. From the building blocks to the energy they contain. Verin talks about the deepest energy level, the absolutely colossal energy locked inside matter itself, the energy from the Big Bang, basically, the famous EMC squared.
Right. The ultimate energy source.
Yeah.
Makes nuclear bombs look like firecrackers.
Pretty much. It's the mother lode. But the problem is accessing it is, well, incredibly hard. Usually you need antimatter, annihilate matter with its opposite.
Yeah, and antimatter isn't exactly easy to come by. You can't just order it online.
No, definitely not. Extremely rare, unstable, difficult to make and store. But here's the tantalizing question Verin raises, the one that could change everything for energy. What if you didn't need pure antimatter? What if there was a way to sort of trick regular matter into releasing some of that immense internal energy?
Trick matter?
Well, Verin believes it's possible. It could be the key to our energy future. But first, he says, we have to stop thinking of particles as just points. We need to understand how they're actually built. We need the blueprints, the intricate internal structure.
Okay, blueprint, so like a proton or a neutron. In the standard view, it's three quarks held together by gluons, right? Kind of fuzzy.
A bit fuzzy, yes. More statistical than structural sometimes.
But Verin's model, it gets way more specific, doesn't it? Much more mechanical.
Much more granular, yes. He moves beyond the standard model abstractions. He describes protons and neutrons as complex soliton systems. Remember the solitons?
The rotating waves, yeah.
So they're made of primary solitons. These are basically the quarks in his model.
Yeah.
And these other things he calls small waves.
Small waves. Didn't he call them aromas? That sounds weirdly delicious.
Yeah, aromas. Don't think perfume, though. Think energy packets. He sees these aromas as the physical reality behind what the standard model calls gluons, the force carriers.
Okay, so quarks are main solitons, gluons are these aroma small waves.
That's the picture. And what's really cool is how he shows in his diagrams, like figure 7, how the precise arrangement, the geometric layout of these main solitons and the small waves allows a neutron, for instance, to have zero overall charge, even though its components are charged.
It's not just cancellation, it's like a balancing act.
A dynamic equilibrium, exactly. Think of a super intricate machine, lots of spinning parts, interacting perfectly.
Each bit might have its own properties, charge, whatever, but the whole thing works together to be stable, even neutral.
Precisely. It's a living balance, not just static components. And this detailed structure, these aromas, this is where Verin really tackles the strong force, the glue holding nuclei together. He says these small waves, these aromas, They aren't just abstract math concepts, they're actual smaller single waves. They arise naturally from the main solitons interacting really closely inside the proton or neutron.
So they're not separate particles exchanged like throwing balls back and forth. They're part of the structure itself.
That's his bold claim. These small waves are the gluons. They are the strong force mechanism. And they directly define the nucleum's charge and its magnetic moment. It's all baked into the structure.
Wow. That's a fundamentally different way to think about forces.
It is. And it leads to something else huge, the mass deficit effect. But way bigger than we usually think. When these small waves and main solitons overlap and interact inside the nucleon, a huge amount of energy gets locked away. Over 55 MeV mega-electron volts per nucleon.
55 MeV, that sounds like a lot. How does that compare to normal nuclear binding energy?
Okay, good question. The energy holding the whole nucleus together, like protons and neutrons sticking to each other, that's typically around, say, 8.7 MeV per nucleum, much smaller.
Wait, hold on. Did you just say the energy inside a single proton or neutron is way bigger than the energy holding the whole nucleus together?
That's exactly what Verin's model shows. Connect this to the bigger picture. The forces binding the quarks within a nucleon are about 6 times stronger than the forces binding the nucleons to each other in the nucleus.
6 times stronger. That's insane. It's like finding a hidden nuclear force inside the nuclear force.
It's just a vast, mostly untapped energy reservoir right there inside every proton and neutron.
Bind officially blown again. 6 times stronger. Okay, so if the internal binding is that strong, what about the force between protons and neutrons, the normal nuclear force? Does Verin have a different take on that too?
Yeah.
He seems like shaking things up.
He certainly does. And yes, he challenges the standard view there too. Instead of seeing the force between nucleons as a unique, short-range, strong force, he proposes it's actually fundamentally electromagnetic.
Electromagnetic, like magnets and charges. How does that work between neutral neutrons and positive protons?
He compares it to an ionic bond. Remember high school chemistry?
Vaguely. Atoms swapping electrons, getting charged, sticking together.
Kind of like that, but with quarks. He suggests the quarks inside adjacent nucleons arrange themselves into a sort of lattice structure within the nucleus, with alternating positive and negative effective charges facing each other.
So the nucleons stick together through the electromagnetic attraction of their constituent quarks.
That's the core idea, an ionic bond at the nuclear level. And he argues this fits really well with how tightly packed nuclei are, matching the known formulas for nuclear size.
So, wait, if this is right, we're looking at a unified field theory where even the strong nuclear force is just electromagnetism in disguise.
That's where Verin is heading, a deep electromagnetic foundation for everything.
Okay, this is huge. But this structure, this complexity, does it shed light on antimatter? You mentioned that earlier.
It does in a very interesting way. You know the big mystery? Why is the universe all matter, basically? Where'd the antimatter go?
Yeah, the asymmetry problem. If they're made in pairs, shouldn't there be equal amounts?
Standard cosmology struggles with that. But Verin offers a really unorthodox idea based on his soliton structure. He argues that in terms of their core fields, protons and neutrons are effectively antiparticles to each other.
Whoa. Protons and neutrons are antimatter versions of each other. But they don't annihilate.
Exactly. Not like an electron and positron. It's more subtle. His view suggests matter, and antimatter can actually coexist within complex asymmetric structures. He points to things like K0 meson oscillations, where a particle flips back and forth into its own antiparticle.
Okay, I've heard of that. Weird quantum stuff.
Right. Verin sees that constant transformation, often driven by the weak force, as a form of dynamic coexistence, not just annihilation.
So matter and antimatter aren't always destined to destroy each other.
Yeah.
They can dance, transform.
That's the implication. And it leads to a really provocative thought. If they can coexist and transform, does that open a new way to get at that energy? A way that doesn't require finding or making bulk antimatter? Could we trigger a transformation?
That is a very interesting question. A pathway to internal energy without needing the anti-version. Okay, intriguing. Yeah. Okay, so this soliton model, this matter-antimatter coexistence, it really turns things on their head. Let's circle back to that first paradox, though. The energy all around us that we can't easily grab. You used the radio wave analogy, right? Energy's there, but we need a receiver tuned to the right frequency.
Exactly. And Verin argues the universe's fundamental energy is just vibrating way too fast for us. He actually puts a number on it, the main frequency of the universe, he calls it, tied to nucleons. Get ready for this. It's about 1.6 times 10 to the power of 23 hertz.
10 to the 23. That's a 1 with 23 zeros after it.
Mind-bogglingly high frequency. Our senses, our current tech, we're just not tuned to that channel. We can't perceive it directly.
So we need a way to tune down that frequency, like the radio receiver.
That's part of the puzzle Verin tries to solve. But this high frequency also helps explain quantum mechanics in a new way. You know how particles sometimes act like waves? The wave-particle duality thing. It always feels a bit mystical.
Yeah, like how can it be both? Where's the electron before you measure it?
Verin tries to demystify it with a brilliant, simple analogy. Coupled pendulums.
Coupled pendulums.
Yeah.
Like those desk toys.
Kind of. Imagine two pendulums hanging close together, maybe linked by a weak spring. You start one swinging. It has all the energy. Gradually, it transfers its energy through the spring to the other pendulum. The first one slows down, maybe even stops completely, while the second one starts swinging faster and faster.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that. The energy moves across.
And then the process reverses. The second pendulum gives the energy back to the first. Back and forth, this rhythmic energy transfer.
All right, so how does that relate to electrons?
Verin says electrons and other particles are doing exactly this all the time. They're constantly exchanging energy with other particles around them, particles in the vacuum field, or in a crystal lattice.
It's not just moving through space. It's in this constant energetic give and take.
Yes. And this ongoing mutual energy transfer is what creates the wave-like behavior, the de Broglie wavelength. It's not some weird property of the particle itself. It's a result of this energy exchange rhythm, this beating effect between the particle and its environment.
So the wave isn't the particle, it's the pattern of energy swapping.
It's a manifestation of the collective energy dance. That's a much more intuitive picture, isn't it? Less spooky quantum magic.
Okay, that is more intuitive, the waves, the exchange, I like that. But if particles are constantly swapping energy, what does that mean for how they move?
Well, this leads directly to one of the most sci-fi sounding quantum ideas. Electron teleportation.
Teleportation. Okay, now you really have my attention. Beat me up, Scotty.
Not quite like Star Trek beaming, unfortunately. It's more subtle, but just as profound. Imagine an electron hitting a crystal, a nice, ordered lattice of atoms. Its energy doesn't just bounce off or pass through like a tiny ball. Instead, the energy gets transferred through that pendulum mechanism to the electrons in the lattice.
So the crystal's electrons absorb the energy.
They absorb it and essentially become repeaters. They get excited. And then, almost instantly, they re-emit that energy package. And because of the crystal's regular structure, that re-emitted energy focuses interferes. And it materializes the electron's energy signature in a new spot, usually at one of the interference peaks you see in experiments.
So the electron didn't actually travel from A to B.
Not in the way we normally think of travel. Its energy pattern, its identity, was transferred and reformed at point B instantly.
Whoa. So the whole quantum mystery of where is the electron, or it being in multiple places, Verin is saying it's not just probability, it's this dynamic energy transfer happening all the time. The electron is constantly dematerializing and rematerializing.
That's the implication of his model. It's being reformed elsewhere via this energy exchange network.
Okay, that is seriously cool.
Yeah.
And potentially useful.
Verin thinks so. He argues this teleportation isn't just a weird quantum quirk. It might be the key mechanism for how we could eventually access and control that deep preserved energy inside matter. Maybe we don't need to smash things together. Maybe we can just teleport energy out.
Okay, mind spinning again. But how do we take these tiny teleporting packets of super high frequency energy and combine them, make them into something big enough, slow enough for us to use?
Yes. That's the next crucial piece of the puzzle. And it involves one of the strangest states of matter imaginable.
Right. So how do we gather up all this high-frequency teleporting energy? This is where Bose-Einstein condensates, BECs, for short, become absolutely central to Verin's picture. He sees them as the natural mechanism for doing two critical things. First, combining the energy of countless individual solitons into one unified, coherent whole. And second, crucially, lowering those insane fundamental frequencies down to a range we can actually work with.
Bose-Einstein condensates, I've heard of those. Super cold, right? Like fractions of a degree above absolute zero. Extremely cold, typically. It's considered a fifth state of matter, distinct from solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. And it's where we see these bizarre macroscopic quantum effects emerge.
Like superfluidity. Liquid helium climbing walls and flowing with zero friction.
Exactly. Or superconductivity materials carrying electric current with absolutely zero resistance. Forever, in theory.
It's like the weirdness of the quantum world suddenly blows up to a scale we can actually see.
Precisely. And remember the breakthrough with high-temperature superconductors, finding materials, ceramics mostly, that did this at much warmer temperatures, jumping from liquid helium temperatures like 4 Kelvin up to, well, eventually 164 Kelvin was recorded. Still cold, but way less extreme. That was huge.
Yeah, that shattered a lot of old theories.
It did. And Verin looks at all these phenomena, superfluidity, superconductivity, HDSC, and says, these aren't just weird edge cases. They hold the secret. They show us how those longitudinal waves work on a large scale and how we might tap into those vast energy reserves.
Okay, so how does Verin explain how BECs work? What's actually happening in that supercold state?
Here's where he drops another bombshell. It's completely counterintuitive. He argues that in these superfluid and superconducting states, the atoms and electrons, they're not moving.
Wait, what? Not moving? How can you have a current like in a superconductor if the electrons aren't moving?
I know, right? It sounds impossible. But Verin proposes a mechanism. He says the external longitudinal electromagnetic fields, those waves filling the vacuum, remember, from all the solitons making up matter. At very low temperatures, these fields become strong enough, relative to the thermal jiggling, to actually order the particles, to correlate their positions, locking them into a perfectly organized, stationary pattern.
So the field itself grabs the atoms and electrons and holds them still, in perfect alignment.
Like microscopic soldiers snapping to attention, held in place by the collective field. This, he says, explains why the critical temperatures are often so low. Those external longitudinal waves are normally incredibly weak compared to the forces inside particles. You need extreme cold to reduce the thermal noise enough for these weak external fields to capture the particles and create that coherent, immobile collective.
Okay, so the particles are frozen in place by the field. But how does energy move then? How does the supercurrent flow?
Because once the particles are spatially correlated, locked in place, something amazing happens. That longitudinal EM wave field, the one doing the ordering, it becomes common to all the correlated particles. It acts like a single unified highway for energy.
Okay, I need an analogy again.
Think of that synchronized dance again. Hundreds of dancers, right? In a BEC, they're not running around individually bumping into each other. They're perfectly still, perfectly aligned. But there's an invisible conductor, the common longitudinal field connecting all of them. The energy flows instantaneously through the conductor, through the field itself, not by the dancers physically moving across the stage.
So the energy teleports through the field.
That's exactly how Verin describes it. Superfluidity and superconductivity are macroscopic forms of energy teleportation mediated by these longitudinal waves.
Wow. And what are the effects of this?
Amazing things. The waves self-amplify, like in a laser. The material shows near zero heat capacity. You can pump energy through it without heating it up, but it has enormous thermal conductivity. Heat teleports through it instantly. The longitudinal wave field mimics particle movement, creating a current without actual electron drift. And the energy can penetrate tiny gaps or barriers that would stop normal flow. It's a whole different way for energy to behave.
Okay, this is fundamentally changing my picture of reality. Energy teleporting through collective fields. And Verin takes this even further, down to individual atoms.
He does. He proposes that atoms themselves are basically tiny internal superfluid or superconducting systems.
An atom is a BEC.
In essence, yes. Within a single atom, he argues, the electrons aren't orbiting like planets. They're spatially correlated and essentially immobile, held in fixed positions by standing longitudinal waves.
The waves hold the electrons in place, like the electron shells.
Exactly. And here's the really elegant part. Verin equates these standing longitudinal waves directly to the quantum mechanical wave functions, PO.
So wave functions aren't just mathematical probabilities. They're actual physical standing longitudinal waves.
That's his interpretation. It provides a physical mechanism for why electrons don't spiral into the nucleus. They're held stably in these wave patterns.
But what holds them up against the pull of the positive nucleus?
He points to the weak interaction, the subtle repulsive force between the nucleons, protons, neutrons, and the electrons, is just enough in his model to suspend the electrons in these stable longitudinal wave positions over the nucleus.
That's incredibly elegant. It explains stable atoms, discrete energy levels, the specific light they emit, all with these standing waves.
It resolves many QM paradoxes by giving a concrete physical picture. Electrons occupy stable, fixed energy positions defined by these waves.
Okay, so if atoms are mini superconductors,
Mm-hmm.
and BECs can happen on larger scales, what about things like nanotubes? You mentioned them before.
Yes, nanotubes and fullerenes, those amazing carbon structures, they fit perfectly into this picture. We know they have incredible properties, right?
Yeah.
Super high electrical and thermal conductivity, better than copper sometimes.
Yeah, they're like miracle materials.
Verin explains this using the BEC concept. In these highly ordered linear structures, the longitudinal waves don't get scattered or dispersed easily. They stay focused, coherent. This allows for incredibly fast spatial correlation. The particles lock into that collective state much more readily. Energy teleports along the tube with ridiculous efficiency.
So the structure itself encourages this BEC-like behavior.
Exactly. And he also describes that focusing effect. Nanotubes can actually attract atoms and molecules from their surroundings.
Why?
Because the intense, common longitudinal waves flowing along the tube create an energy, well, potential minimum, that pulls things in. It's shown in his figure 15.
That's wild. Nanotubes acting like tiny energy funnels or tractors.
It demonstrates the power of these coherent longitudinal waves to manipulate matter. These aren't just theoretical waves. They have tangible effects.
Okay, this is leading somewhere huge. I can feel it. Nanotubes channeling these waves. You mentioned gravity earlier. Don't tell me these waves are involved in gravity too.
According to Verin, absolutely. He proposes that longitudinal electromagnetic waves are fundamental to gravity.
Get out. Gravity is electromagnetic. That's like the holy grail of physics, unifying those forces.
It is. And he challenges the whole idea that gravity is inherently weak at the micro level. He says it's actually incredibly strong down there, but because of the way these waves interact and average out over larger scales, it looks weak macroscopically.
Any evidence for this? Strong microgravity.
He points to things like optical trapping, using lasers to hold and move tiny particles, like nanotubes. He argues the laser isn't just pushing with light pressure, transverse waves. It's acting as a source of standing longitudinal waves that create potential wells, capturing the particle.
So the laser manipulates microgravity generated by longitudinal waves.
That's the implication. Gravity isn't just a passive pull. It's an active manifestation of these pervasive, powerful longitudinal waves.
So if we can control these waves,
yeah,
we can control gravity. And maybe do impossible things.
Perhaps achieve nuclear fusion without billion-degree temperatures.
Oh, man. Cold fusion again? Is this the connection?
This is the connection. BECs are the key, remember. Two crucial roles. One, combining tiny energy packets into a useful whole, like gathering raindrops into a bucket. Two, downshifting those insanely high particle frequencies, 1023 hertz, into a manageable range. And the energy available in a BEC isn't just the small energy holding it together. Verin argues it's the total internal energy of all the particles locked in that coherent state, including the massive reserves from the strong and weak interactions inside the nucleons.
So a BEC is like a battery that holds the deepest energy of matter.
And allows it to be accessed coherently. He brings up the Mussbauer effect again here.
The recoilless emission of gamma rays.
Yes, he calls it superfluidity of excited energy states. The recoil energy doesn't shake one atom. It's instantly shared across the entire crystal lattice by the common longitudinal field. Energy teleporting, basically, proving that energy can be handled collectively and coherently by these fields.
Okay, this is building. BECs combine energy, lower frequency, allow teleportation, which leads directly to his idea of super cold thermonuclear fusion.
Exactly. Fusion, not in a blazing hot star or reactor, but within a Bose condensate.
How does it bypass the Coulomb barrier? The repulsion between positive nuclei. That's the whole reason fusion needs high temperatures, right?
Right, but in a BEC, you don't need to smash them together classically. You use the teleportation mechanism, the longitudinal field highway. You can, in theory, teleport the nuclei directly into the interference maxima right next to each other, close enough for the strong force to grab them and fuse them.
You literally bypass the barrier using quantum teleportation.
That's the revolutionary proposal. No need for brute force heat.
And he even suggests how to do it. With nanotubes.
Yeah, he sketches an idea using nanotubes arranged like a hedgehog pointing inwards. The idea is they could focus the longitudinal waves to create a tiny, intense energy minimum at the center. This could trap reactant atoms, draw them in, and maybe, just maybe, initiate fusion, even at room temperature.
Okay, that is straight out of science fiction, but based on, well, a different kind of physics.
It's testable, he argues, the implications if it works. Limitless, clean energy, it's staggering.
Absolutely staggering. Okay, hold on to your hats, folks, because Verin isn't done revealing potential energy revolutions.
No, the potential energy sources just keep coming in Verin's framework. Building on this idea of cold energy generation, harnessing quantum effects. He talks about the Josephson effect.
Josephson effect. Okay, that involves superconductors, right, with a thin gap between them.
Exactly. Two superconductors separated by a tiny insulating barrier, a weak link. Now, if you apply a steady, constant DC voltage across this junction, you don't get a steady DC current out. You get an alternating current, AC. It radiates electromagnetic waves.
A constant voltage produces an oscillating current.
Think back to those coupled pendulums. If you make one slightly different, change its frequency a bit. The energy doesn't just transfer, it oscillates back and forth in a rhythmic beat. In the Josephson junction, the voltage creates a tiny frequency difference between the two superconducting states, the BECs on either side. This makes the energy beat or oscillate across the junction, creating the AC current.
Okay, but are the electrons actually crossing the gap?
According to Verin's model, aligning with the BEC teleportation idea, no. The electrons aren't physically crossing the barrier in the usual sense. Their energy is being teleported across by the coherent longitudinal waves.
Energy teleportation again. And this effect, it's powerful.
Potentially very powerful. Verin calculates that a single Josephson junction, working by these quantum rules, could theoretically transfer energy at a rate equivalent to 10 kilowatts.
10 kilowatts from one tiny junction. Where's the energy coming from?
That's the question. Standard QM describes the effect but struggles to explain the energy source. Verin suggests it's tapping into that underlying vacuum energy field via the longitudinal waves.
Wow. 10 kilowatters from teleporting energy. That's a serious potential power source. And this teleportation idea, you said it explains cold fusion, LNR.
It provides a mechanism, yes. The big objection to cold fusion has always been the Coulomb barrier. How do you get nuclei close enough without immense heat?
Right. It seems impossible at room temperature.
But Verin says they're looking at it the wrong way. It's not about brute force overcoming the barrier. It's about bypassing it. If you have the right conditions, an ordered structure, like a crystal lattice, maybe palladium saturated with deuterium acting like a BEC, that structure becomes the quantum highway. Particles can be teleported via the longitudinal waves directly into the sweet spots, the interference maxima, right next to other nuclei.
So the crystal lattice acts like the nanotube hedgehog, focusing the teleportation.
Essentially, yes. It facilitates the close approach needed for fusion without needing the heat. This fundamentally changes the requirements. Maybe those controversial cold fusion results weren't all errors. Maybe they were glimpses of this teleportation mechanism in action.
It certainly opens the door to possibilities previously dismissed as impossible, doesn't it?
It really does. And this theme of ordered structures harnessing energy continues. Verin also discusses plasma crystals.
Plasma crystals. You mentioned those briefly. Dust particles in plasma-forming lattices.
Exactly. Tiny, visible specks of charged dust suspended in a plasma. Under the right conditions, they don't float randomly. They snap into place, forming these beautiful, ordered, crystal-like structures. You can see them.
And this is another macroscopic quantum effect, like a BEC.
Verin argues, yes, it's analogous. A common resonance of longitudinal waves locks the particles into this ordered state, fastening them together energetically.
Could these be used for anything practical? Energy storage, maybe?
Potentially. If we connect this to the bigger picture, maybe these plasma crystals could function as novel energy accumulators or components in future energy systems. They're another visible clue that ordered structures can interact with these underlying energy fields in powerful ways.
Okay, plasma crystals, cold fusion, Josephson junctions. It feels like we're moving into territory some people might call free energy or perpetual motion.
Well, Verin reframes those controversial terms. He discusses ideas like Professor Kushin's proposed gravitational thermal plant.
Gravitational thermal. How does that work?
The idea is to mimic hurricanes to extract heat directly from the environment.
Mimic a hurricane. Those are forces of nature.
Exactly. Think about the engine of a hurricane. Warm, moist air rises. As it rises, it cools. Water vapor condenses into rain or even freezes into ice high up. This phase change releases a huge amount of latent heat.
Right. The heat release powers the storm, makes it rise faster.
It's a continuous, self-sustaining cycle drawing enormous energy from the ocean and atmosphere. Kushin's concept is to try and contain a similar process inside a huge vertical tube. use controlled airflow, maybe water injection, and turbines inside the tube to capture that released heat energy and generate electricity.
Wow. Harnessing a contained hurricane. What kind of power are we talking?
Verin suggests, based on Cushion's calculations, it could potentially rival nuclear power plants in output, but cleanly, using environmental heat.
That is ambitious. But it forces the question again, where does the energy for a hurricane or this device or anything ultimately come from?
And Verin has a grand answer for that, a truly cosmic perspective. His ultimate view is that the universe itself is essentially a perpetual engine of the second kind. We're not trying to violate thermodynamics by creating energy from nothing. We're simply learning how to cleverly embed ourselves into the energy flows that are already happening all around us all the time.
So the universe is constantly circulating energy, and we just need to dip our bucket in the right stream.
That's the picture. He even argues that the energy we currently use, atomic energy, thermonuclear energy, we think it's fundamental, but he sees it as just leftovers. Remnants of this much grander cosmic circulation, energy stored in unstable nuclei created in past cosmic events like supernovae. We're just tapping into old reserves.
Wow. Okay, and what drives this constant circulation? Why isn't the universe just cold and dead?
He points to gravity's subtle effect on electromagnetism. The reason we have temperature gradients naturally, like in our atmosphere, cold or higher up, isn't just simple convection or mixing. He argues it's a universal law. Gravitational fields subtly shift the frequency of electromagnetic waves passing through them. Higher frequency means higher energy. This constant frequency shifting drives a continuous energy exchange, seeking equilibrium, which manifests as these temperature gradients.
And we have proof of gravity shifting frequencies.
Yes. The Nussbauer effect was actually used experimentally to detect exactly this tiny shifts in gamma ray frequency due to height differences in Earth's gravity. It's real. So the universe is in this constant thermodynamic dance, driven by gravity's interaction with the EM field.
Okay, mind blown yet again. The universe as a giant gravity-driven heat engine. So if that's happening on a cosmic scale, could we replicate that? Make our own mini version? Not a giant hurricane tube, but something smaller.
Verin thinks so. He proposes an artificial gravity device. But instead of using actual gravity, it uses a carefully shaped, non-uniform electric field.
An electric field mimicking gravity.
Yeah. And instead of air, it uses a gas made of molecules with strong dipoles molecules with a built-in positive and negative end, like tiny magnets. The inhomogeneous electric field interacts with these dipole molecules, creating radial pressure and temperature gradients within the gas, just like gravity does in an atmosphere.
And this gradient causes the gas to circulate.
Exactly. It sets up a continuous circulation, transferring heat from the surrounding environment into a usable form, potentially driving a small engine or generator.
Could you stack these? Make it more powerful?
He suggests a cascade system, yeah. Each stage adds to the effect, creating a practical temperature difference for heating, cooling, or electricity.
So a tabletop device pulling useful energy from ambient heat using electric fields. That's another potential game changer.
It is. But there's an even more fundamental way Verin says we can get more out than we put in, using established thermodynamics. And this involves looking again at Carnot's principles, but in reverse. The reverse Carnot cycle. It seems paradoxical, right? Getting heating efficiency over 100% sounds like breaking the laws of physics.
Yeah, it sounds like free energy scams.
But it's not. The second law of thermodynamics says you can't convert heat fully into work, like electricity. There's always waste heat. But the reverse process, converting work, electricity, into heat, that can be done with over 100% efficiency.
Where does the extra energy come from?
From the environment. This is exactly how heat pumps work. A heat pump doesn't just turn 1 kilowatt of electricity into 1 kilowatt of heat like a simple electric heater. It uses that 1 kilowatt of electricity to move, say, 3 kilowatts of existing heat from the cold outside air into your house. So you put in 1 kilowatt of electricity, but you get 4 kilowatts of heating effect inside, 400% effective efficiency.
It's not creating energy, it's moving existing heat energy using a smaller amount of electrical energy as the pump.
Precisely. So Verin argues the smartest energy strategy is 1. Convert your primary fuel, whatever it is, into electricity as efficiently as possible. 2. Use that electricity to run a reverse Carnot cycle device, a heat pump, to generate heat. pulling extra energy from the surroundings. You effectively multiply the energy value of your original fuel.
And this isn't just theory. People do this.
Absolutely. It's standard practice in many places, especially in Europe, for efficient heating and cooling. It's basic thermodynamics, just cleverly applied. Verin even shows a design for a piston-based heating device, his figure 23, that directly uses this cycle to pull heat from the air.
Okay, so even within known physics, there are ways to be much smarter about energy by working with the environment. Fascinating, right? Understanding thermodynamics better, using heat pumps, that's practical stuff. But Verin also dives headfirst into the really weird stuff, doesn't he? Things that science usually sweeps under the rug.
Oh, yeah. He tackles a whole range of documented yet unexplained phenomena head-on. He lists things like quakers, these bizarre, powerful, booming sounds recorded by submarines underwater. Nobody knows what they are. Glowing lights seen in the ocean, sometimes columns of light shooting up, sometimes rotating spheres, reported by credible witnesses.
Oh, yeah. What else?
Ships mysteriously losing all power in certain ocean areas, the Bermuda Triangle kind of stories, but documented incidents elsewhere too. People experiencing sudden, overwhelming feelings of dread or anxiety in specific locations for no apparent reason, and of course, UFOs. Objects seen making maneuvers that seem to defy aerodynamics and inertia as we know them.
Okay, so strange physical anomalies. But he goes further. Into psychic stuff.
He does. He discusses psychophysical phenomena, focusing on people like N.S. Kulagina, the Russian psychic. Her abilities were studied extensively, apparently under lab conditions, moving small objects without touching them, telekinesis, creating localized hotspots on surfaces, ionizing the air around her hands, even deflecting a laser beam slightly.
Deflecting a laser beam?
According to the reports he cites, yes. And remote viewing apparently identifying numbers written on paper hidden from view. He also mentions the summation of energy effect, how group telekinesis attempts seem stronger than individual ones.
Okay. This is deep into fringe territory for mainstream science.
Yeah.
What's Verin's take? Magic? Hoaxes?
Neither. His argument is consistent. These supernatural or unexplained things are not magic. They are physical phenomena governed by laws we just haven't properly understood yet. And the key to understanding them, once again, those longitudinal electromagnetic waves. And he scales this up, connecting these waves not just to psychic phenomena, but to the cosmos itself. He proposes a truly revolutionary idea that celestial bodies, planets, stars, maybe even galaxies interact in another way besides gravity. Oh. He calls it frequency interaction.
Frequency interaction between planets. How?
Through those de Broglie oscillations we mentioned earlier, but generated by the relative motion of massive bodies. Remember, de Broglie waves are usually tiny, for small particles, but Verin applies the concept to planets moving through space. And here's an amazing calculation he presents. 2 planets moving at just 3 kilometers per second relative to each other can generate de Broglie waves with wavelengths in the sub-millimeter and centimeter range, microwave frequencies.
Planets are broadcasting microwaves at each other just by moving.
That's the suggestion. And these aren't just theoretical waves. He thinks they could physically impact nature, maybe even biological organisms on those planets. And here's a wild leap. Maybe these floating frequencies can sometimes resonate and form localized Bose condensates in space or the upper atmosphere, which we then perceive visually as glowing UFOs.
Oh, UFOs are cosmic de Broglie wave BECs. That's out there.
It is, but connect it to the bigger picture. It paints a universe with this constant, subtle, energetic communication happening between celestial bodies. An energy exchange that could lead to some planets gaining energy, others losing it, maybe causing those weird quakes or the glowing columns of energy seen rising from the oceans, points of intense energy transfer.
A cosmic energy internet running on de Broglie waves. Okay, that's a huge concept. So, planets talking to each other, UFOs as BECs. Does this connect back to life? To us?
Absolutely. Verin brings it right back home. He argues these longitudinal waves are fundamental to biology. He points to emerging research suggesting these waves are key players in living systems. They act as primary carriers of bioinformation, like a control system, playing a dominant, organizing role in how tissues form, develop, and function correctly.
A hidden communication network inside us, run by longitudinal waves.
That's the idea. Think about dowsing, for example, finding water with a forked stick. Seems like magic.
Yeah, how could that possibly work?
Verin explains it physically. The Earth itself is permeated by standing longitudinal waves, perhaps generated by underground water flows, mineral deposits, or geological structures. A dowser is simply someone who is naturally more sensitive to these waves. Their body acts like an antenna or a repeater. The subtle changes in the waves cause an involuntary muscle reaction, making the dowsing rod move.
So the dowser's literally reading the Earth's longitudinal wave patterns.
In this model, yes. It's not magic. It's heightened sensitivity to a real physical field. The planet is speaking through these waves. And that natural sensitivity, Verin argues, is the basis for more extreme psychic abilities, too. People like Kulagina, or the famous stage telepath Wolf-Messing. They weren't just sensitive perceivers, maybe they could also consciously generate and focus these longitudinal waves.
So telekinesis is like focusing longitudinal wave energy.
That's the proposed mechanism. Or think about firewalking, the Nesta Narstabo he mentions, walking on hot coals.
How do they not get horribly burned?
Verin suggests that in that heightened, maybe trance-like state, the body generates intense, coherent longitudinal waves. This creates that superfluidity of energy states locally in their feet. The heat energy from the coals is instantly distributed across the entire body via the common feel, rather than building up and burning the skin locally, like the Musbauer effect, but for heat.
Instant heat distribution. Wow. Okay, this is tying a lot of weird stuff together with one mechanism.
It leads to a really profound, almost spiritual, but physically grounded question. If Earth is humming with these standing longitudinal waves, and we have crystalline structures everywhere in the ground, maybe even plasma crystals in the ionosphere, could our planet itself function like a giant living supercomputer?
A planetary computer. A noosphere.
Yeah.
Like Vernadsky talked about.
Exactly. A global system with immense memory processing information via these waves. And could psychics, maybe even all of us to some degree, be tapping into this global computer, accessing information, maybe even influencing events through resonance with this field?
That's a staggering thought. The planet as a conscious entity.
Verin even quotes Wolf-Messing directly. Messing predicted, decades ago, that if normal EM fields couldn't explain telepathy, scientists would eventually discover a new field that could. Verin concludes, Messing was right. Longitudinal electromagnetic waves are that field. And in his unified view, they are one and the same as the gravitational field, responsible for telepathy, for psychokinesis, even for UFOs messing with electronics or affecting human minds through direct field interaction.
Wow. Okay. So the supernatural is just natural physics we haven't mastered yet. Longitudinal waves are the key. Gravity, telepathy, UFOs, it all connects.
That's the grand unified picture Verin paints.
So where do we go from here? If this model holds even a fraction of the truth, what's the next step?
The next step is crucial, Verin emphasizes. We need to move beyond theory and anecdote. If the physical reality of these longitudinal waves is becoming clearer, the phenomena linked to them are vast and fascinating. Now we need to learn how to work with them reliably. We need to develop methods to generate them controllably in the lab, to measure their intensity and frequency accurately, and to conduct rigorous experiments. That's the frontier.
Okay, let's try and wrap our heads around this incredible journey. We start off questioning energy, right?
Yeah.
Why is it so hard to get when the universe is supposedly made of it? And Verin took us down this rabbit hole. Matter as condensed EM fields, particles teleporting energy back and forth, the possibility of cold fusion by literally bypassing energy barriers using these quantum wave effects. It's been a wild ride.
It really has. And if you connect all these dots, Verin's work isn't just tweaking physics, it's proposing a whole new paradigm. It reimagines quantum mechanics, superconductivity, even gravity and psychic phenomena as different facets of one single underlying reality. This dynamic vacuum, alive with these powerful longitudinal electromagnetic waves. He's basically saying that the supernatural is just the natural. We haven't figured out how to measure or manipulate yet. The science just needs to catch up.
So, the really big thought to leave everyone with. If our planet is like a giant living computer vibrating with information, with energy flowing through these hidden waves, and if some people can already tap into that, maybe unconsciously, maybe like Kulagina or Messing, what happens when we, as a species, consciously learn to understand, to interact with, to maybe even speak the language of this universal field? What other impossible things might become possible? The future of energy, maybe the future of consciousness itself. It feels like they might be linked in ways we're only just beginning to dream of.
The potential is truly mind-boggling, a universe far more interconnected and energetic than we imagined.
Absolutely. Keep exploring, everyone. Keep asking those big questions. And keep jiving deep with us right here. We'll be back to unpack more of the universe's secrets, one fascinating concept at a time. Until next time, stay curious.